The story of Mount Sinai may go back just 50 years for me, but it goes back 4,000 years. And what the evidence is and what's coming out now, there are so many tentacles, there are so many things that come into play. Joel Richardson just returning from Saudi Arabia. Joel, tell us about what's going on in Saudi Arabia. Why is this so significant, and the exposure of this in this day and time?
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing what's happening in Saudi Arabia. It's been a closed kingdom. It's been a closed nation for so long. Unless you have a visa to work in the country, you can't get in. So tourism, it's not open to tourism. And all of a sudden, this young reformer named Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, he's the son of the present king, he steps onto the world scene and he makes a big splash. Overnight, he arrests dozens of some of the leading and most wealthy princes in the kingdom. And he actually had them arrested. And in a lot of ways, this was part of his process of reform, because he's going to be king pretty soon, and he wanted to sort of shake down some of the corruption in the country. And all of a sudden, the world's attention is on Saudi Arabia. Wait a minute, we thought this is the most sort of closed, radical, devout Islamist nation in the world. And all of a sudden, you've got this reformer he's letting women drive, he's opening movie theaters, and he's going to open doors to tourism. And we go, what in the world's going on? He comes over here to the United States, he does a big tour, he meets with the president, he meets with all of the big heads of all the big tech companies. And one of the big projects that he's about to launch is he's going to build a city called Neom. Neom, N-E-O-M, is slated to become a city. It's not just a city. He calls it a city-state. There's a video, you can go on YouTube, the Saudi government has put out a video that sort of gives an overview of this. And they talk about it not just as a city or a city-state, but as a new way of living, that this is going to be the turning point for the future of mankind. This is going to be the most technologically advanced, high-tech, green, and global city in the world. So just think Dubai on steroids.
Right. Now, Dubai was really their first foray from being an oil empire and all the revenue from that to attempt to go into the shopping mecca of the world, which it really is. But this is going to be their foray into the high-tech mecca of the world.
Yeah. They want it to be a business center where people from all over Europe, all over Asia, people from all over the world will come here to do business. This is going to become a business hub. Listen to this. They're saying it's going to be 33 times larger than New York City.
Wait, 33 times larger than New York City? That's the plan. This is a parcel of land that they plotted out, which is like 200 square miles, is it not?
Yeah, this is huge. So I'll show you a picture. There's maps, of course. Here's a picture, by the way, of Mohammed bin Salman. Again, he's only 31, 32 years old. This is a face that he is going to become a very common world leader. I mean, he is changing the world. But so here's a picture of Saudi Arabia. So up here in the northwest corner, this little circle that says Neom, that's the entire region. This is called the Tabuk province. And they're already, by the way, this is not just something they're going to do, they are already starting it. When we were up there, we were running into engineers, European engineers. They are already in the process of laying the groundwork. The airport is being put in place, the king can fly in. They're already beginning plans to build all of these resorts along the Red Sea as sort of a launching pad for all of the workers. They can stay at the resorts. One of the hotels that we stayed at was having a Neom conference. I mean, when we walked in, big sign, welcome, Neom, the future, and all of this. And so look at another map. This is a zoomed in area. And again, to the left here is the Sinai Peninsula. This is the Egyptian Sinai. So in the southern center of that is where the traditionalists believe that Mount Sinai is located. Over here to the right, you can see the white line. That's where Neom will be. And in the middle, I've put this blue triangle. That's where Mount Sinai is. That's where the real Mount Sinai is.
Right square in the middle of what they are planning for the high-tech mecca of planet Earth, right there.
Yep. And of course, they're going to be inviting hundreds of thousands of people. So of course it's going to become open to the world. Of course it's going to be open to the world.
So this is what Jim and Penny have been saying, is that by them keeping Mount Sinai behind a chain link fence with guards, with Bedouin guards, armed guards there, it really has preserved this from being taken over or being polluted. And now they know what's there. There's no question.
Yep.
Tell us how, because you're the one that sent me the video of Shabbat Night Live on Arab television. Tell us about what they now know and what's the background on that.
Yeah, and so, I mean, the Saudi royal family, the Saudi government, just like any other country, it's a country with all sorts of conflicting political interests and so forth. But in fairness to the Saudis, they have done a very good job. They put up a fence way back when Ron Wyatt was visiting, and he made them aware of that. The fences went up, and people say, well, this is because they were trying to hide the reality. They don't want the world to know that Mount Sinai is here. But in truth, I think they said we should just preserve and protect it just in case. And they've done a very good job of stewarding this location. And again,
they've done archaeology on it. They've done digs in proving certain things on that you're going to be sharing, right?
Yeah, the Saudis themselves have done some initial investigations, some preliminary. And they, in my opinion, some of the things, because maybe they did have a bit of an agenda. They didn't want these people sneaking into the country and visiting it. There was some of that for sure. But some of the findings they had indeed validated these various archaeological sites around the mountain. But so here we are at this moment in history, this moment right in history where it's about to become open. I have talked to some Saudi royals, and all of the information that I have is that they believe it's the Mount Sinai. They have various scholars that believe it's the real Mount Sinai. They have artifacts that they are going to bring out to the world and present to the world that validate the fact that this is the Mount Sinai. And they recognize that what they have, and they're actually, in my opinion, doing a very good job. Now, I said there's some conflicting political interests. Yeah, there's some contingents, no doubt, within the country that don't want Westerners coming in, that don't want non-Muslims coming in and so forth. And so they have to deal with that. They have to deal with, just like any government has to deal with. But there is this contingent right now that's running the government, that will be running the country, that does have a genuine heart to open the country up for moderation, to open it up to the world. And so, like I said, this is about to become, I think, the biggest spiritual pilgrim destination. Like, I've been to Israel many, many times. I love it. It's a powerful experience. Nothing in my life has been as soul-stirring, as faith-building as visiting this site. Again, I was in awe. You can feel, and I don't mean to get spooky, but you can feel the echoes of what happened there 3,500, 4,000 years ago. You can feel the presence of God. That's the only way I know how to describe it. Yeah. And I want others, I know Jim and Penny, I know anyone else that's been there, they have a heart, they want to see others experience that as well. And in the years ahead, I think people from all over the world they'll have the opportunity to experience that.
Well, Tim Mahoney, in his film Patterns of Evidence, he did an excellent job laying out the history and the archaeology, and with David Rohl showing Israel's exodus and getting them to the Yam Suf, to the Red Sea. But that's where the movie ends, because he tried to get in with Jim and Penny, with Aaron Sen, with others, and get in to Saudi Arabia, and every bit of their evidence, their cameras, everything was confiscated from them. But things look like they're breaking, and this may be, I'm hoping, the next edition of Patterns of Evidence, taking us all the way to Mount Sinai. And you've got some information that the Saudis may want to get involved with exposing this to the world.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, he's going to be the king. His brother is Mohammed bin Sultan. He's the Minister of Heritage and Tourism, or Tourism and Heritage. And everything that I hear is that he is fascinated, very interested in this location. And so, in a very unique and interesting way, I think at this moment we have shared common interests. The Christian world and the leaders of the kingdom, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia have shared interests. They want to see tourism come in. They want to see interest come in. This is going to be a financial, this is going to be fantastic for them. Yeah. But for Christians in particular, again, as I said, all peoples who are children of Abraham, including Muslims, are going to want to visit. When we were there, we ran into a group of Pakistanis. They work in the country. They work there in Saudi Arabia. We started talking, real friendly. And they had heard about Mount Sinai. They said, oh yeah, we heard that this is the mountain of Moses. We want to go see it. And we said, well, we're going. You want to come with us? And
this is Pakistanis.
Yeah, Muslims.
Yeah.
And we had a great time. They spent the day with us, and we actually went to the Split Rock. And we're going to talk about that later in another show. But so the point is this is a place of fascination for Muslims, for Christians, for Jews.
Yeah. Now, for those who may not be aware, when he speaks of the split rock, this is the split rock at Rephidim, the rock that Moses struck that out of it belched the rivers of water that came down to the camp of Israel, and we're going to be taking people there. You were right there at that spot, and taking Muslim Pakistanis there with you who had heard about that and wanted to see it.
Yeah, and they were absolutely fascinated. And here's the thing too, and I'll point this out, is that they had heard about this not from Ron Wyatt, not from Jim and Penny Caldwell, from the locals. The locals call it the Split Rock of Moses. Well, I'll show you some video later. The locals refer to Jabal Allah as the mountain that we believe is Mount Sinai. You know what they call it? They call it Jabal Musa, the mountain of Moses.
Yeah.
So again, and as we'll see again, we'll talk about this later, there are ancient Jewish and Christian traditions that go all the way back 250 years before Jesus. They go back to the time of Jesus, that they believe that this is the real Mount Sinai. This mountain just outside of the town of Al-Bad, which they believe was Midian, they believe this is the real mountain. So this has more traditional historical evidence than any other candidate out there. And so therefore, as we'll see, the local Muslims have always believed this. And so they haven't come under the sway. I'm referring to the skeptics. The skeptics try to say, well, all you Christians and you Messianic Jews, you've been duped by Ron Wyatt, right? By the fanciful theories of these dilettantes. But I go, no, Josephus and Philo back in the 1st century were not deceived by Ron Wyatt. The local Muslims were not deceived by Ron Wyatt. They have always believed that this is the real Mount Sinai. Mm-hmm. So we need to understand Bedouin local tradition, the Saudi archaeological authorities, they have all these sites fenced off and designated. You can look it up. They refer to the caves of Jethro. They refer to the well of Moses right there in the town of Al-Bad. They call the mountain of Moses. They call the split rock of Moses. So this has been behind closed doors. Again, the skeptics want to say, oh, this is just some idea that some modern American evangelicals have come up with, and it's sensationalism. That's nonsense. That narrative is nonsense.
Yeah. And we can go back to the origin of Helena's Mount Sinai, and we can see all the traditions that are surrounded that, and none of that really makes sense. This is where David and Roll and I debated this, the Great Exodus debate, in which the sites that they have marked out, the traditional sites of Mara, the place of bitter waters, and the 70 palms and the 12 wells, they're all in the wrong place. They're all in the wrong course of events, even though they built monuments, Catholic monuments there to commemorate these things, but they're in the wrong order of events. It's only when you cross there at Nueva, it's only there that you have everything in the right order, and you've got video, you've got photographs to show us some of these different things, do you not?
Yeah, I've got all kinds of photographs. I'll show you real quick. So here's the mount. Here's Mount Sinai. It's called Jabal al-Lawz, Jabal al-Makla, the dark tip right there. You've probably seen some of these on the internet. It is a rugged mountain. And what's interesting is Josephus in the 1st century, he actually refers to the mountain as an exceedingly rugged mountain, really difficult to climb. And so, when I'm there, if you've been there, you go, yeah, it's an exceedingly rugged mountain. I mean, it takes, depending on which side you go up, it can take you all day to get up there.
And so now this is something when we came to the mountain, and it was on the first day of the third month, as a Rosh Chodesh of the new month of the third month, and Moses went up into the mountain. So you've actually tread that same area. So he was going up in sandals. You probably had a little more sophisticated footwear, but you say it could take an entire day to get up that mountain.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, in the Saudi heat, right, you know, this is not just like hiking up a trail. There's no trails. You're climbing over rocks. You can't even go up with hiking poles. You know, you're climbing and clawing. And the whole thing, by the way, here's just some pictures of the local, you know, everything is bristly. It's desert. You walk through, there's sharp, harsh thorns everywhere. It would have been tough on Moses if he had sandals. You know, his feet would have got chewed up. I had hiking boots on, and my ankles got all chewed up. I had thorns for months afterwards still in my fingers because I didn't have gloves. It's a tough desert mountain. And so hopefully in the days ahead, I'm hoping that the Saudis will actually create a nice hiking trail so that as tourists go, we can walk up to the top a little bit easier. But for right now, it's a beast of a mountain. It's about 8,000 square feet. 8,000 feet tall.
Well, I was very excited because the first thing I saw, I knew that you were going in, of course, but when I saw you in the video in the cave of Elijah on top of the mountain, it's like, what a dream come true that you actually got to go there. This is incredible.
Yeah, like I said, and again, it's one thing, you know, to see it on the internet. It's one thing to see pictures, but when you're there, you see the topography, you see the layout, you read the scriptures over and over and over again on every point. Everything falls into place. This is what's amazing. The skeptics pick away. They go, well, this, they try to sow doubt here. This, they try to sow, well, this is a coincidence. This is a coincidence. At some point, when you've got a dozen coincidences, you have to be a fool. You have to be a fool.
Yeah, and they're all substantiated by the scripture.
Yeah.
And that's really, you know, my experience with Wyatt is that he actually went by the scripture and went to these places where the scripture said. And it was James Irwin, the moon astronaut, that could see Mount Sinai. They could see the split rock. They could see that from a satellite in space. And so these were the kind of things that really compelled him to go with his two sons and cross the desert in the middle of the night after years of trying to get authorization. And he risked his life and really risked his sons' lives. They ended up 73 days in a Saudi Arabian prison because of that.
You got to give the guy credit. I mean, look, he's received a lot of criticism. I've never met him. I have not met his sons. But you got to give the guy credit. If you're willing to sit for 3 months in a Saudi prison, you got some street cred, right? I mean, he believed it and he was willing to risk it. And by the way, after being in Saudi prison for 70 some odd days, he turns around and less than a year later, he came back. He came back and did it again. And so he didn't do it. He did it for one reason. He believed this was the real deal.
That's right. And that was what, when the Saudi prince came out and they flew him out to that site and he showed them the altar of the golden calf, that's when they decided this is the real thing. Because, you know, this is not part of Arabian culture at all. Apis and Hathor, the Egyptian cow and bull gods, they recognized this as Egyptian, and that is what freed him after 76 days in prison on this. Joel, we got to have you back. We're going to really explore this thing now because you're going to show us some evidence, some etchings on the rock that no one has seen before, and we're going to be back. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the treat of a lifetime. Get your friends, your neighbors, your enemies, get everyone back here next week for Shabbat Night Live because we are taking you to Mount Sinai.